seem like the start of the video. So going back, I was mentioning this is effectively Inspirisles. It has the first stage of the Kickstarter has been delivered. It's the PDF on itch.io, and as you can see, I've got a copy of that PDF up on the screen as we speak. Now, I'm going to go through what the game is, my experiences with playtesting it, a bit of disclaimer. The design of this is Rich Oxon and my brother. I also had a help in hand with the mechanics of it. So I'm of course biased towards this. I genuinely do think it's an absolutely fantastic game system, an RPG. The world that Rich has created is rich, unique, different, and then the mechanics of the game, including that unique aspect of sign language, is really unique, really fresh, and just simplifies everything. So I'm going to talk about kind of like the game in essence, but I'll also go through a few parts of the rule book as well, which is now available. It will be produced and printed and delivered to backers relatively soon once it gets through, but obviously delivery with the situation around the world, we'll have to see and wait and see when that happens, but will be soon. But the good news is it's in backers' hands now. They can get the PDF and they can play the game. I think Rich has been waiting so long for this since such the massive success of the Kickstarter campaign. We were all humbled and blown over by how successful it was. It's so nice now to actually get the final copy into players' hands and backers' hands. So hopefully, this will give a little bit of an insight and awareness to those who weren't backers. Because if you didn't back it by Kickstarter, you can still get it on itch.io, and I will put a description in the link. I'll put a link in the description below that you can use. So I think this sums it up really well. It's a synopsis at the back of the book, and it talks about the fact that in this unique role-playing game, you'll play teenagers sent to mysterious Inspirisles to fulfill a pact made centuries ago by your ancestors, Arthur and Guinevere Pendragon. So Arthurian legend is what it's kind of based around. As you earn belief and battle disbelief, you will learn to wield powerful elements through shaping a technique that uses sign language. So we're talking about belief and disbelief. We had Rich on the channel quite a few months back where we talked about Inspirisles and the game development, a little bit of a preview, and he talked about the lore and the mechanics and his ideas of why he came up with these things. And he likened it a little bit to a never-ending story, and the idea that the world is alive because of belief, but there's a lot of disbelief happening, which is starting to tear the world apart. And you've been sent to this Inspirisles to effectively build up that belief to try and bring the world back to that world, Inspirisles, up to its belief and its balance. Now, the key features. This is really key. All ages, game suitable for 13+. So it is aimed at the younger audience, and I think that's a really, again, a unique point and a really important point. Accessibility was really key for Rich with this game. You could go lower than that. You could go a lower age than that. You just make it appropriate for that. You make it easier. It's all about the narrative, about getting the Pendragons to think creatively and just drive their whole narrative with that structure that's supplied by the book. Character creation without numbers or statistics. We're not talking about the 6 attributes that you normally think about with RPGs. Mathematics, numbers, adding this to this, armor class, blah blah blah, rolling different dice, all the rest of it. It's been streamlined. It's been simple, as it says, simple and fun dice rolling mechanics to make narrative the focus of the game, and that's the key part. And that's why I love this game that Rich has made so much, because it does really encompass that narrative aspect as really the whole thing, and then the dice mechanics is just there to roll that along and give it a little bit of a flavour. Emphasis on teamwork and cooperation, that's key for RPGs, of course, but there's a lot of things stemmed in the core mechanics of the game which really build upon the idea of working together. Vibrant characters and creatures from Celtic folklore, and you'll see, I mean, Rich made the whole world himself. All of this, the book, the content is his, but he's got a fantastic team behind him, especially with Josh Somerville, who did the vast majority of the art inside the book, and we'll see some of that in a minute. Absolutely outstanding. It's you'll see it in a bit, and if you like Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild and that style of art, then you'll see what I'm talking about. We'll have a look at that in a bit. Full introduction to British and American Sign Language with accompanying video tutorials. So the video tutorials, of course, are on the website, not in the book, but the British and American Sign Language, in the glossary, you've got all of the diagrams to show all the sign language. So it's like reference sheets. The key here is, because it did so well at Kickstarter, it smashed some stretch goals, and American Sign Language was a stretch goal. But there was a big American contingent of backers, and Rich made the decision to just include both British and American Sign Language into the book itself. So whichever sign language you're using, you'll be able to choose from the book. Right, anyway. So I think that really encompasses it. It's all about simple mechanics, not bogging it down with numbers, and really making that narrative the focus with this sign language element into it. Now, of course, not compulsory, but is meant to be used for that. So straight with that striking cover there with Inspirisles. Now, what we've got here is the different chapters, so it's broken down to different chapters. You've got a bit of welcoming, some history, Pendragons, questing cabin, shaping with Sita, training with Sita. But what I really like, again, with what Rich has done here, is he takes you through a narrative as you go through the different chapters. So rather than just saying, these are the rules, it's kind of, it takes you through it as part of the storytelling. So the Grail guide, who's effectively the dungeon master in this game, they can just read the narrative, and it will take you through the different stages of creating a character, finding out how you get to Inspirisles, the world that you get taken to, the idea of shaping with Sita. So this character, so you already start to build in these characters, the NPCs, these characters of the world, before you even start to go on your adventures. It's really clever and almost like a tutorial. So you imagine a bit like a video game where you in a video game where you go through those tutorial missions to start with. So you learn the mechanics and you learn how to play the game. It follows that, but it's purely narrative. It's just absolutely fantastic, which is what video games are doing now. You'll play your early missions, which are kind of tutorials, and then but it's still the main story. And then as you go through, you start to build up on the mechanics, and then you go through. And that's what Rich has really tried to embed into this whole Inspirisles RPG playset, in the sense that with the sign language in particular, you will start very basic, and then you'll start, as you level up, so will your sign language. And so you're effectively, even though he does explicitly say it's not a comprehensive sign language course, you will learn the basics, and the hope is you kind of get an interest into it and you want to take it further yourselves. And I'll talk a little bit about the play testing that I did with my students, because that aspect of it was a really, really strong part, and one that they liked, probably, really up there with the best things about the RPG system that was here. Then we've got the Grail guide, which kind of is what the Grail guide reads. It talks about how to be a Grail guide. Loads of examples, really great, you'll see them in a second, really great to see, rather than just saying, this is what you do, Rich has actually included actual examples of what you might do for tests, and how they might go about them. And then you've got Questing Day, so how to roleplay, and then Scrib's Tour, which talks about the world of Inspirisles and the different islands, and the different fae, the different inhabitants of that island. And then the appendices, of course, have got the, as I mentioned before, have got the information sheets, the cheat sheets, if you like, for all of the sign language. So as I said before, it talks about what it means to be a RPG, effectively a little bit about the world. It certainly does play best with 5 participants, one Grail guide, and 4 Pendragons, which is the players, or what's called the players. Mainly because the Pendragons will each take one of 4 elements. If you're playing with 4 Pendragons: water, air, earth, and fire. So obviously it works best if one Pendragon's got one element, but there are rules in the book if you've got different player counts. So it is possible to do all of that. That's absolutely fine. One thing for sure, you need at least 3 players, because you need at least one Grail guide, and you do need more than one Pendragon, or else you're not really role-playing, you're not working as a team. So it just talks about that, what questing days are, and the rest of it. Then, this is just little things that not always included in a lot of rule books, but it's the whole point is accessibility, having people just go through these stories together, also aimed at teenagers and younger people, and it just talks about what role playing is best done, and especially with the other aspects of this game. So just talking about let ideas other than yours be heard, always keep teamwork in mind, and try not to steal the spotlight. Kind of things that, as a teacher, you try and instill on your students anyway. But loads of stuff on there as well. And it's how to set it up, what you need, what role-playing is, what it means to be role-playing, how do you role-play a Pendragon, so the difference between narration and performance. Again, this is just an example. Rich has used here some examples of what narration is and what performance would look like, just in case you really don't know what role-playing is and you haven't had the experience for that. Belief and disbelief, how the world is run, it's such an important part of Inspirisles, of course. And then a little bit about the history, so talking about how the world came apart, and you're seeing here some of the fantastic art that's in there. I'm going to kind of move through here. So then we've got the 4 elements. Again, what's really nice about this is we've got a little bit about history, then you've got about relationships between these different elements, and these well-wishers, as they're called. And you've got Kilner, Igraine, Ethylene, and Vorm. Obviously, again, Arthurian legend coming into here, and you can see just amazing art as you go through it. It looks beautiful. I'm going to move through. There's plenty here to kind of read, but what I wanted to move on to is the Pendragons. So the Pendragons who are effectively playing the game. Now again, anything in this kind of font is narrative, is story based. Okay, so it talks about what's actually happening. So it gives you an idea. The Pendragon, the Grail guard can just read this, as it were. Then you're going to create it, and again, here's the narrative yet again. Okay, so whenever you see these dots on the right hand side, we're talking about the narrative. So the Grail guy can literally just read this out as the characters, role playing them. So you're creating your character sheet while in character and while role playing, and I really like that aspect of it. So it's really just taking you through, holding your hand as you go through creating that Pendragon that you're going to play, or the players will play. Again, plenty of narrative there. If you're not sure about names, he's even included a random name table. More narrative as you keep going through. If there's different player counts, how would you deal with that? Have we got it here? What about your hobby? So you're going to have a hobby. So rather than, it's a little bit like a bio, I guess, but it's stemmed in the whole idea of the game and how you role play. You're not going to have, a helm, armor, shield, sword, quarterstaff. It's not like that. It can be anything you want. You might like cooking, and therefore the items that you give to your Pendragon might be a spatula, might be a frying pan, might be ingredients, some different ingredients, whatever you want. That might be linked to that hobby, or it might be linked to something different. It's very, very fluid and very, very open to whatever you want to role play as a Pendragon. So it's about progression and leveling up, about Excalibur, which is been broken up into shards, and that's kind of one of the parts of it, is you're going to go around as Pendragons trying to find these different shards of Excalibur and try and get them to be reforged by Kilner, who is the fire well-wisher. And then as you keep going through, you are going to earn belief. You may be getting some disbelief. and as the disbelief starts to add up, then calamities will happen. So rather than kind of like XP, the belief is used, but the belief is also currency as well. So belief is kind of currency and XP. So you use it to level up, use it to kind of forge Excalibur, and you use it to, of course, give to Inspirisles and offer to the world's the tree, the world as well, the world of Inspirisles, to target and counteract against that disbelief, which is the whole point of why you're there, is to bring about much more belief and get rid of the disbelief from Inspirisles. And that's your idea. So it talks about some different aids. So some people, some characters that can help you along your journey. Obviously the Grail guy can use these. And then we move on to the questing cabinet. Again, all stemmed in that narrative. So as a Grail guide, you know, you can literally just read from this book as you start to start your journeys and the world of Inspirisles. More and more character creation, if you like, based on that. Just look at the art. It's just, I mean, Josh just knocked out the park. It's just beautiful. How you travel around. And then we get into kind of when you've created your Pendragon and you've kind of made the introductions to Sita and a few of the other key characters, then they will you'll go through the tutorials. Okay, so how do you do shaping? And shaping is where the sign language kind of comes in terms of tests. Now, of course, you can sign language your names, your hobbies, items, anything you want, and you're very much encouraged to do so. You know, the more you sign language, the more fun it is, because it's really fun just learning something new while playing. This is a great, and talking about these stories, which is why we all love RPG so much. So there's about shaping and what that means. Again, plenty of narrative to do that. This is the art that's used for some of the sign languaging. Whether they're different levels of shaping, of course, as well, which are all in there. And then you've got the training with Sita. So this is great. This tells you what the two different tests, I guess the best way to think of it, are. So you've got belief barriers, which are uncontested dice rolls, okay, or tests, and it goes through stages of what you do, okay. It gives it in more detail, so you can really just see what's going on, and as always, some examples as you go down on the right hand side, so you can kind of follow on. What did that mean? Oh, okay, that's an example, that makes sense. Then you've got the disbelief battle, so you've got the majority of the things you will do in a questing day will be belief barriers, and maybe the odd disbelief battle, which is an opposed dice roll against the Grail guide, okay? But with all of this, the Grail guide is not against, what an RPG should be, to be honest. The Grail guide is not against the players, against the Pendragons. They're there to bring the story to life and kind of steer and facilitate the Pendragons on their journeys and their stories. So this is opposed. So you have two different people rolling dice, and both of these tests are based on 3d6, rolling 3d6. With the belief barrier, you are effectively trying to get 11 or more on your 3 dice. There will be some things in the game which will change and alter that result to make it easier. Never harder, always easier. Except for, as you start to go up levels, you'll have more rounds to go through. Now, the best way to think of this is the roll is to determine what the outcome of that particular stage of that narrative was. For example, we always use this as an example when we were playtesting, but imagine Indiana Jones with a big stone boulder. It's coming down a corridor that you're in, and you can't just step out of the way. So then you've got to think, as the Pendragons, what you're going to do. Now, with all of these, as it says here, the Grail Guide describes the nature of the test. So that would be the nature of the test. It's this boulder's coming at you. what is the challenge level? So let's say it's level 1. Now it could be level 2 or level 3. It really depends. As you go up the levels, you start to increase the number of rounds, which does make it harder. Then the party will nominate a leader, and then the leader will decide, along with the rest of the Pendragons, how they're going to use their shaping, their element, to overcome that obstacle. Then, as they're all talking together, and this is where the team play comes in, the more that you have teamwork, the better the outcome of the dice roll, the more you can add bonuses to your dice roll. So how will the remaining Pendragons use shaping to assist them? And you can use the different elements to do different things, and this almost leads to a limitless options of, it's up to the imaginations of the Pendragons, of course. And again, that was the whole point, I think, of what Rich was really after, was it's all narrative, it's all creative based, it's not about numbers and trying to hit, I need that number to do that, Because if you don't get 11, so you need 11 on 3d6, if you don't get 11, then, and you get 10 or less, then you can kind of think of it as a failed test, but it doesn't mean that you're going to lose this many hit points because you don't have hit points. It's more about, right, then the narrative will change slightly. Then they might have to do something else, or might have to go about a different route, or do a different thing. And it will change what the Pendragons are doing to try and accomplish their goals, as it were. There's also Unshakable Belief, or Unshakable, which is a 17 or 18 on the 3d6. And then there's also the opposite to that, which is Disbelief on a 3 or 4. This is how you can gain belief and disbelief tokens, which are effectively, for belief tokens, remember, are kind of your currency, your XP, and disbelief is going on this calamity meter. And as that builds up, things will happen in the world of Inspirisles, which will make it worse and worse. Okay, so you're kind of forced to really use the best of your elements, the best teamwork you can to try and pass as many of those tests as possible. If you can get those unshakables, even better. Now, when it comes to a disbelief battle, which is an opposed test, then you will go against the Grail guide or whatever the challenge is you're facing. And it may not be a fight, okay? It may not be a fight. You might be doing something to do with speed, or you might be, you have to do something really quickly, or you might be a puzzle, or whatever it might be. It could be anything, really. But it'll be most things. But just remember, with this setting, bloodshed causes disbelief. So instead of forcing your opponent to flee or surrender, so try and do that. Try and think creatively, and that's what the idea is, to think creatively. It's not all about just hacking whatever challenge you face. Just hack it down. Think about it a little bit more creatively. Anyway, again, same thing again. The number of rounds, depending on the difficulty that it is, you nominate leader, just the same. You go with the one with the dominant element if possible. So if you're against a fire element that is the challenge, then you would go with water in the first instance. The leader and the Grail guide decide how they will use their shapes to win the battle. So now the Grail guide's coming into the play with shaping too, and sign languaging and all the rest of it. So really getting the Grail guide to go with the Pendragon as well. Then they roll your 3d6. You use your shapes to kind of to help narrate what you're doing. So you've said what you're going to be doing. You shape the element to cast it, if you like, or to complete it, and then you adjust your roll depending on what you've got. So the idea is that the different elements will do certain things, re-rolls. So if you're an aggressive element like air or fire, you'll get to re-roll your opponent's dice. If you have water or earth, which are more defensive, more passive elements, then you re-roll your own dice. And then once you've re-rolled, then you look at the two results, and the highest total number effectively wins that round. Pendragons will always win ties, so leader wins tied rounds to make it so it's in the player's favour. So you've got those two, and then fantastically, as I said before, Rich has included plenty and plenty of examples in this as well, just so you can really understand as a Grail guide. Oh right, that's how they run. I can now explain that to my Pendragons, and they can work it out through there. So plenty of those to go. Then it's the Grail guide, which is really the section that the Grail. So the Pendragons don't need to read this. This is for the Grail guide to read and kind of understand, like, right, how do we set these tests up? How do I fit those into the narrative? How do I fit that into the questing day? And Rich has kind of gone with 6 different archetypes of those tests. So sword, which is an aggressive test, shield, which is a defensive test, speed, time test, smarts, puzzle test, social communication test, and survival environmental test. So this kind of plays on those traditional kind of skills that you would normally see from an RPG in a way. And again, just some ideas of some general stuff, and then some example scenarios yet again. So plenty of stuff to kind of look at and go, oh, okay, that's what you. Yeah, okay. I can put maybe some of those in or whatever it might be. Okay, so again, plenty of scenarios as examples. I really like that. It's just really helping the players and the Grail guide, just in case they're not used to role playing, just in case they're not used to creating a whole scenario themselves, or even a campaign. That can be very, very daunting. Any little help can sometimes help, and I like the fact that Rich has put those little nuggets in there. Okay, so plenty and plenty of stuff to look at. What the GOGs are, so this is on a unshakable 18 during a test. You get these special familiars. Again, beautiful art there. Talking about the numbers and balance gifts, lots of different things. The calamity meter, remember that disbelief is all building up, and then things you can use the shards of Excalibur, and by reforging them, you help to get rid of disbelief. So that's the only way to get rid of disbelief. But then, as your disbelief does add up, these events will take place, and it talks about what they are. Just beautiful, they are. What well-beings are, the Undiles, which is kind of the darkness, I guess, the underworld of Inspirisles. Safety, so really again about the accessibility. Just thinking about safety as a Grail guide. What are your Pendragons? Is there any sensitive things to think about? Do you have to think about? You have to think about those things. So there's a few little places that some tips and so forth that you can use for that. And then finally, you've got your questing days, which you can use as the Grail guide. I'm going to move through that because I wanted to go on to Scriv's Tour. And this is where some of the again, all based on a narrative, which I really do like in this book. And you've got the UK and Ireland, as you can see, so the British Isles. And you can see we've got certain places that Rich has populated linked to that, the idea of Arthurian legend and the world he's brought about. And it talks about each of the areas, what the faction is, what the Fae are, remember the inhabitants of that, and just absolute gorgeous art through all of that. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's Inspirisles in terms of this rulebook. There is more in there for you to see and read when you have it. But the key with the book, and what I really like what Rich has done with this, is really focus on that accessibility, keeping things simple, helping those who haven't RPG'd before, who haven't role-played before, who certainly haven't Grail guided or Dungeon Mastered, who haven't run these sessions before. They can pick this book up and they can kind of read those how-tos, loads of examples to go, okay, so that's how you do that test. That's how you role-play. That's how we can create these Pendragons, these characters. And you're taking it from there, as it were. Now, as I said before, I play tested this with some of my students and with 4 of them, and we had it was so nice. It was so good. It flowed really easily. It was very easy to kind of set up some characters because again, you didn't have to worry about any attributes, and they found it quite hard because a couple of them had come from a Dungeons and Dragons background, which they absolutely loved. Don't get me wrong. and they still do. But they came from that, thinking, you know, character creation, rolling for each attribute, thinking about the items and what kind of character I am, what bonuses I will get from those different things, from those different stats, and all the rest of it. Whereas this, it was literally, right, okay, so what's your hobby? What items do you want? Who do you want to be called? And kind of what drives you, what kind of personalities you are, and it, you know, Rich goes through that in the book as well. So you do some descriptions of some different personality traits, and that kind of ties you to an element. And then once that's done, you literally read through. I read through the book of the training at that time through Sita's training, and then it's a really nice kind of basic introduction of how to shape and going through parts of those. And then once we did that, I set them on their journey to go and pick up the first shard of Excalibur, and yeah, they went, just let it free reign, and it was amazing the creativity that anyone will come up with. Yes, you can give them a little bit of help in hand. That's kind of part of the Grail guy's job, is to just maybe help, especially if you see the Pendragons or any players kind of struggling with what to do and how to solve that test. Then you can maybe just give some pointers, some ideas, because ultimately you're there to just drive the story and just come up with a story, a memorable story that you can talk about. Now, the other part of this was the sign language. Now, the pupils absolutely love this part. You have the sheet up, so you've got the sheet nice and ready, so it's there in front of you, of how to use your fingers to effectively do basic pointing alphabet, to spell out different things using like A, E, I, O, U, and all the rest of it. So you start with just using the elements, so the fire, the water, the earth, and the air. So they just signing their individual elements to start with. Then they move on to their names. Then you might introduce numbers, and then as they start to you do that more and more and more, they get used to the etiquette of sign languaging. It becomes a little bit more second nature. It goes a bit quicker. The amazing thing I saw, which is really what we wanted, what the whole point of the game was, is that them helping each other, and like, oh, I can't remember what F is. Oh yeah, no, F is this. So really helping each other with the sign language element of it, even, you know, above just trying to help think at each other's how they could use their elements to overcome a task. They were actually helping each other with the sign language part as well. And a massive part of what Rich has included into this is reflection time. A little bit like a plenary of a lesson, in the sense that you think about like what went well, what do you enjoy, what didn't go so well, what didn't you enjoy, and then you can talk through that together. What have we learned sign language wise? Can we talk in sign language? Can we spark up a conversation? Can we include it into our conversation? And then from that, you get an idea as the Grail guide. Probably more importantly, you know, what really drives the players, and what do they really enjoy about the whole experience, and it helps you to drive your future questing days down certain paths. Do you want to maybe include a little? They might have really enjoyed one of the puzzle elements of a belief barrier, and they loved it, and they loved that part, and they weren't so massively keen on maybe some of the more fighting elements of it, or more, you know, that aspect of it. In which case you can go, all right, let's get some more puzzle elements into there. If that's really what they like, let's chuck that into that. So it's a really useful tool, which, to be honest, as a teacher, it is the most essential part of learning anything, is the reflection. We call it plenary sometimes, but it's certainly reflection. So when you've done that, can you apply it? Can you reflect upon it? What do I understand that? Does that make sense? I'm really interested in that part. I really want to take that. If I was going to do it again, what do I do to change that? All those things, which is on the reflections aspect of the game, which is all again in the book, in the Grail Guys section. And what you would, I highly recommend that you go through that as well. So, yeah, I mean, it was very successful as a playtest. I think the book has come out absolutely fantastic. You know, for the first time publishing, first time designing, and bringing this team together. My brother's done a fantastic job. Rich has done a fantastic job. yes, I am biased. I'm his brother, of course I'm biased, but being genuine, I think it's a fantastic job, and I just wanted to just show it out there and just talk a little bit about the book, Inspirisles the world, the mechanics and the ideas behind it. Obviously, Rich, I will get Rich on the, as I say, I'll get Rich on the channel, and you can talk about that, and also maybe just hint at some future stuff that he's doing, which is going to be really cool. But yeah, we just want to see what the general public think of Inspirisles, and see and just get some feedback onto that as well. Okay, so I just want to do this as a live stream just so I can get it out in one take. The actual recorded one will have the muted start completely gone, so don't worry about that. But you can find a link in the description below of how to get to itch.io to the Hatchlings DM web page there to get Inspirisles, and you can purchase the PDF copy of that. Backers will be getting the physical copy relatively soon. Keep an eye on the Kickstarter updates for that, and of course there's the Discord as well for those backers to talk about the game and just RPGs in general. So I hope that gave you a little bit of an idea about what Inspirisles is, now that we're at a really exciting time where it's actually in backers' hands and open to the general public, and it'd just be great to see what people think of this unique RPG. I certainly do love it. I think it's just a labour of love from Rich Oxenham that's just been poured into a book, and I think it really does show. So, well, thanks for watching, and if you're interested in Inspirisles, again, I'll put the description in the description below. I'll put a link to the itch.io. I'll also put a link to the Hatchling DM website as well.